Hello and welcome. I'm Ijoma Onyato. Tonight, Inspector General of Police insists voters should vote and go. Those who remain may be charged for loitering. Three days to the election, INEC yet to take hold of 153,000 PVCs. Media chiefs in Nigeria urge the fourth estate of the realm to set the agenda for the nation. And black box flight data recorder from crashed Germanwings A320 is found.
And on business news tonight, the CBN Monetary Policy Committee retains 13% monetary policy rate. While on sports news, Nigeria Super Eagles returning to action for the first time in 4 months, boast that Uganda will fall.
It's 3 days to the elections, and the Inspector General of Police, Sulaiman Abba, is asking all voters to cast their vote and leave. According to him, those who hang around afterwards for whatever reason risk being charged for loitering. Now, this was the outcome of the stakeholders meeting organized by the Independent National Electoral Commission in Abuja today. Our correspondent Lanre Lasisi reports that INEC has again given the assurance that all is set for Saturday's election.
It's a gathering of civil society organizations, political parties, and election observers. They're here for a final look at the preparations and security arrangements for the 2015 general elections. The chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission took participants through the preparations, processes, and procedures for the 2015 general elections.
It can be noted that INEC has forged ahead with the preparations to conduct the 2015 general elections as rescheduled for March 28th and April 11th. We believe that the period of extension has offered us an opportunity to further perfect the electoral process for the delivery of free, fair, credible, and peaceful elections to the satisfaction of the yearning and the aspirations of Nigerians.
It was then time for the Inspector General of Police to speak on security arrangements for the elections. He said security agencies are working together and enough security arrangements have been made for the elections. He, however, touched on the issue of waiting at polling units after voting.
And I repeat, I advise every voter, when you cast your vote, I advise you to go home.
He said this advice is to help voters not to contravene any of the offenses in Section 129 of the Electoral Act, such as this particular subsection.
And I want you to please take note of this, loiter without lawful excuse after voting. Please.
Most of the political parties did not agree with this position. They also took him up on the role of the military during the elections.
The military, I have not seen, and the military is not being deployed to any polling unit at all. There was a direct question whether staying back is a lawful purpose. I'm sure a time will come when it will be determined whether the lawful purpose, if they say, what is the opposite of loitering, that will be determined. Whether by casting your vote, that lawful purpose has expired, will also be determined.
Now, some concerns were raised about the use of card readers, concerns that were addressed by Professor Jega, who says the card readers will help check electoral fraud and also help ensure that the 2015 general elections are free, fair, and credible. Lanre Lasisi Channels Television News.
153,000 permanent voters' cards are still on their way to Ogun State, one of the states worst hit by a low collection of cards. In an attempt to explain what's happened, the Independent National Electoral Commission has declared that the commission is yet to take delivery of them. An INEC official said in Abeokuta, the state capital, that he's optimistic that the cards will be delivered, even though the elections are 3 days away.
The last batch of materials we are still expecting from Abuja to come to the state is 153,185. And up to now, it has not arrived. They said we should come today, and already our vehicles is in Abuja for collection. And once the production is completed, they will send it down. And we believe it will touch ground in Ogun State by today, so that we can commence the distribution tomorrow. The total number of cards received so far is 1,642,607. And the total number of cards distributed is 1,136,003.
And giving an update on the PVCs, the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Professor Atahiru Jega, says about 56.7 million voters' cards have been collected. Professor Jega, who hosted a stakeholders meeting today, says the figure represents about 82% of the registered electorate by the close of distribution. INEC also says that ballot papers for Saturday's presidential and National Assembly elections are to be moved from the Central Bank of Nigeria's vaults from tomorrow, March the 25th. And the Chief Press Secretary to the INEC Chairman, Mr. Kayode Idowu, adds that all the non-sensitive materials have already been distributed. Away from the elections for a moment. Now, one major fallout of the insurgency in the northeast is the emergence of internally displaced people. And to handle this development, the Presidential Initiative for the Northeast has begun moves to resettle this group of persons back to their original communities. The chairman of the committee, Professor Soji Adelaja, says beyond the immediate needs of the communities, the committee is working to ensure that stability is brought back to the region. Our correspondent Amaka Okafor reports.
Over the last 3 weeks, the Nigerian military and their allies from neighboring countries have continued to recover lost territories from the Boko Haram sect. However, some of these territories are inhabitable and their indigents make up over 1 million Nigerians that have been displaced. However, the Presidential Initiative for the Northeast is taking steps to resettle these displaced Nigerians and give them a new lease of life.
I think our nation wants people to return back to their communities so we can rehabilitate not just them, but rehabilitate their communities. The things that were not going well before, such as absence of schools, dilapidated schools, these are issues that can be dealt with better in the context of people in their communities, the communities that they left.
The committee promised to work with all organizations working in the Northeast to ensure that efforts are not duplicated and that available resources are properly utilized.
PINE is part of a broader initiative to coordinate action. All of these support initiatives will eventually be the responsibility of PINE, because the president, the government, established this presidential initiative to ensure a number of things are put in place in the Northeast post the crisis.
The committee also announced that it has the commitments of 4 states in the region and hopes to get more.
4 governors have signed MOUs that lay out the scope of what they contribute versus the scope of what the federal government will contribute. This is an element of the planning that has already taken place.
The last 5 years has no doubt been rough for Nigerians in the Northeast. They expect the intervention by the military will be a lasting one and that the many promises made by government will be fulfilled to enable them go back to their normal lives. Amaka Okafor, Channels Television News.
In part 2, after the break, former President Olusegun Obasanjo hosts APC women in his hilltop home in Abeokuta, the Ogun State capital. That's in a moment. to join us again.